So I grew up in a West Indian household and music was everywhere in our house. My parents were very noisy parents. They were always listening to music and listening to music very loud. And at the time we're talking reggae music, soul music. As a young kid I was an avid radio listener, so I heard everything on the radio. My father was a guitarist. There were always instruments around the house. We had drums in the house, keyboards were in the house. I picked up the guitar and I found out that what I was picking out of the guitar was the actual bass lines that I was hearing off of vinyl records. I used to go to rehearsals with my dad. The highlight for me was hanging around to the end of the rehearsal just so that I can jump on the bass player's guitar. And I think my dad saw my love for the instrument. He bought me a bass. That bass was a Fender Music Master. All I cared about was that I owned a Fender. I had the greatest bass in the world. This became my main instrument for the next 10 years or so. It wasn't until I was in my early 20s that I wanted to improve on the bass and get into the whole theory side of things. And I took a 10-week course at the Bass Institute in Wapping, which was above the Bass Centre back then. Before you go on the course, you would have to go and do like a little assessment, almost like an audition. And I remember being auditioned by Tony Muschamp, who was like the CEO of the company. I remember him looking at my Music Master, my Fender Music Master, and he was like, "That's a toy, really. I think you need to get the proper bass." After leaving with a little bit of embarrassment, I decided I was going to have an upgrade. My next bass after that was a Hohner Headless. So in the 80s, I was an avid record collector. I grew up listening to reggae music and soul music sort of side by side. Reggae was like my first love, music that I had grown up with listening to from my parents. The soul music was almost like my musical challenge. The licks and everything all came from soul music. Verdine White from Earth, Wind and Fire and Nathan East were main influences that I came across. They were on the credits of a lot of records at the time. But I also had this reggae side of me, which was a very disciplined form of reggae bass playing. And a player I was listening to a lot was Flabber Holt. Now Flabber Holt would play 2 notes, sometimes 3 notes in a whole track. Not everyone wants licks galore all over their record. Sometimes they just want you to play what's been recorded, especially in pop music. One day I get a call for an artist called Frankie Paul. It was Frankie Paul and an artist called Mighty Diamonds. This would have been my first reggae tour. So I get the call, I'm quite excited. A couple of days later, I get another call saying that Mighty Diamonds and Frankie Paul are bringing a bass player from Jamaica. So all of a sudden, my hopes are dashed. 15 seconds of fame, all over. Mikey Fletcher was the bass player and the MD of that particular tour. Shaggy has a hit with a song called Boombastic, and Mikey Fletcher is called away from this tour to go and play for Shaggy. And then my chance comes back again and I'm asked to come and complete this tour. That was my first sort of major foot in the reggae industry. So I spent many years in the reggae world touring with many reggae artists, many festivals through Europe, Japan, and all over the place. I remember getting a call for a pop artist called Craig David. This now was a whole new level from my reggae level, because now you're doing arenas and theatres, stadiums, private jets. I went on to play for Lamar, Belinda Carlisle, Casey and Jojo of Jodeci. This also opened up a world of TV for me, where I worked with Mariah Carey, Phil Collins, Lionel Richie, a UK pop artist named Tayo Cruz. Sometimes you do some of this TV stuff and you're just miming. My very first gig with Tayo Cruz was a TV show, and I just assumed that it was going to be a mime. I remember meeting the band and talking about what we're going to be doing on the show, and I said, well, I don't need to worry about it too much because we're just miming, aren't we? And they said, no, we're not miming, we're actually playing. And I remember having to actually learn the music on the journey from the bus to the actual gig, and when we actually played the stuff live for TV. So around about 2009, 2010, I think this has probably been the peak of my career. It was quite an exciting time where I was just jumping from plane to plane, taking off my soul music hat, putting on my reggae hat, putting on my pop music hat, and it was a really exciting time. I also worked as a producer alongside my bass playing career, and in 2015 I got the chance to work on an album with a band called Morgan Heritage, a reggae band based in the US and Jamaica. That year they happened to win the Best Reggae Album category at the Grammys. I also went on to be nominated the following year and the following year after that. And this sort of leads me up to 2017, where I sort of left the touring world and jumped into the online world, which is where I've been ever since. Your talent is probably only 50% of what will get you through your music career. The other 50% is attitude. You're going to be playing a lot of music that you probably don't even like. So play it like you love it, because there's a lot of worse jobs you can be doing than playing music. So make sure that you turn up on the gig and nail it.